She thought she had it all: a successful husband, a beautiful bayfront home, and a daughter whose laughter filled every room. For 10 years, Nia Kamara stood behind Kojo, sacrificing her career to build what she believed was a perfect family. But at exactly 2:03 a.m., everything changed. A cold ping from a phone hidden beneath a pillow woke her up. One message on the screen: she'll never see it coming. Kojo snatched the phone, claimed it was just work, but there was fear in his eyes, the kind she'd never seen before. Days later, Nia opened the safe using their daughter's birthday. Inside wasn't paperwork. It was divorce documents. Her husband had planned everything, keeping the house, the assets, even their child. And he was moving the money before she even knew. But Nia didn't fall apart. She reached out to an old friend, Malik, a financial expert, and uncovered secret transfers to a shell company tied to another woman, Zuri Dlamini, her husband's trusted colleague and mistress. And when Nia caught them embracing in a parking lot, Zuri just smiled, a smile that said, "I've already won." But Nia wasn't crying anymore. She was watching, waiting, recording. With the help of a ruthless lawyer, she turned the game around. They froze the assets, stopped a $400 million transfer, and when Kojo screamed, "What did you do?" she calmly replied, "What you taught me, always stay one step ahead." 1 year later, Kojo was suspended, Zuri vanished, and Nia opened a foundation for women defrauded by their own partners. Sometimes losing everything is how you find your true power. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Nia and I want to send you a warm hello. The phone vibrated once, twice, then lit up under the thin quilt. 2:03 a.m. The room was still, heavy with that particular silence of a city before dawn. No cars, no wind, only the faint hum of the air conditioner and the pulse of something about to break. Nia stirred, half asleep, her hand sliding toward the glow. Before her fingers reached it, Kojo snatched the phone. The motion was sharp, too sharp for that hour. His breath hitched, his shoulders stiffened. For a second, their eyes met in the dark, her confusion against his alarm. He turned away, the screen's blue light painting a nervous outline on his back. A message flickered before it disappeared. "Blackwell Law Firm. She won't see it coming." The words seared themselves into Nia's half-woken mind, like a scar left by cold metal. Kojo mumbled something about work, about a client in London, about time zones. His voice was careful, flat, the voice of a man choosing every word as if each one might detonate. Nia forced a smile, murmured "okay," and watched him rise from bed. The door to the bathroom clicked shut, water rushed, and the mirror above the sink caught his reflection. The tremor in his jaw, the eyes that wouldn't look back at her. Steam filled the air. Through it, she heard the rhythm of water against tile, steady as a heartbeat. She sat up, heart racing, that text echoing again and again. She won't see it coming. The phrase felt aimed at her, not some stranger across an ocean. The light from his laptop blinked on the desk. She hesitated, listening to the shower, then crossed the room barefoot. The scent of his cologne, cedar and smoke, clung to the air. On the open screen, his calendar pulsed with color-coded appointments. One city name pulled her attention, Accra, another, Johannesburg. But one line froze her completely, Zuri onboarding meeting. Zuri, the new financial coordinator. She had met her once, briefly. A warm handshake, a quick smile that never reached her eyes. Too polished, too aware. And now her name sat there in Kojo's schedule like a quiet secret. Nia closed the laptop, returned to bed, and lay still while the shower water stopped. The bathroom door opened with a hiss of steam. Kojo moved carefully, too carefully. When he lay beside her, she felt the distance like a wall made of ice. She turned to face the window. The city outside was a pattern of orange dots swimming in mist. Somewhere below, a dog barked, a sound stretched thin and lonely. She closed her eyes, trying to believe it was nothing, an overreaction, a trick of fatigue. But deep inside, something fragile shifted. A thin crack began to spread through what once felt unbreakable. When morning came, sunlight poured through the curtains, too bright, too clean. Kojo was already dressed. His tie matched his suit perfectly. His watch gleamed as he reached for his keys. He smiled the way he used to in photographs, practiced, charming, a man who always knew where he was going. "Long day ahead," he said. Nia nodded, her throat dry. He kissed her forehead lightly, almost dutifully, and left with the smell of expensive aftershave lingering in the doorway. The sound of the door closing felt heavier than it should have been. The house breathed in silence. Nia wandered into the kitchen, poured herself coffee that had gone lukewarm on the burner, and watched the steam curl, then vanish. Everything looked the same: marble counters, the family portrait near the fridge, Naletti's drawings taped on the wall. Yet nothing felt the same. She carried the mug to Kojo's study. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the room smelled of polished wood and old ambition. Files lined the shelves in perfect order. The safe, built into the wall behind a framed award, blinked quietly with its digital lock. Her fingers hesitated on the keypad. She typed Naletti's birthday, the day their daughter came into the world screaming and perfect. The safe clicked open with a softness that terrified her. Inside, beneath folders and a few luxury watch boxes, lay a neat stack of papers. At first she thought they were work documents, contracts maybe, but the header caught her breath. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her name, his signature, every clause and incision. Kojo Kamara retains full ownership of Kamara Holdings. Kojo Kamara retains exclusive rights to family residence. Custody of minor child to Kojo Kamara. Her hand shook. A red ink note at the bottom read, "Assets to be transferred prior to filing." The room blurred. She sank into his leather chair, the papers trembling in her lap. Outside the window, sunlight spilled across the manicured lawn, the garden she'd planted with him 5 years ago. The wind brushed against the glass, gentle, indifferent. Her mind replayed every small tenderness, dinners, laughter, whispered plans, all turning brittle now, collapsing into a single truth. He had been planning her disappearance from his life long before that 2:03 a.m. message. She set the papers back exactly as they were, locked the safe, straightened the frame, every movement deliberate. It was a ritual, one of mourning, not panic. When she left the study, she felt something else beneath the shock, the first outline of resolve. Later that afternoon, she picked Naletti up from school. The girls' laughter filled the car, innocent, free of shadows. Nia smiled, but her chest ached. She listened to her daughter talk about an art project, about colors that didn't mix right, about a teacher who said she was gifted. Every word made Nia's purpose sharpen. Whatever Kojo was plotting, she would not let him take this child's safety or future. At home, while Naletti painted at the kitchen table, Nia opened her laptop. She searched Blackwell Law Firm. The results came quickly: a sleek corporate website, a list of partners, one name familiar: Richard Blackwell, a specialist in asset protection and high net worth divorces, the same name on Kojo's phone. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She scrolled until she found a photograph. Blackwell shaking hands with Kojo at an awards gala 2 years ago. The caption, "Celebrating new ventures in global finance." The smile on Kojo's face in that picture was the same smile he gave her every morning. Confident, untroubled, rehearsed. She closed the laptop. The sound of the lid clicking shut echoed like a decision. That night, she waited until Kojo fell asleep. His breathing was even, deep, as if nothing in the world could touch him. She turned on her side, watching his face in the dim light. How many times had she traced that face with love? Now it was a mask she couldn't read. The ceiling fan rotated above, slow and hypnotic. Every spin counted the seconds between her fear and the impulse rising in her chest. She reached for her phone, opened the calendar app, and marked a single note for the next morning. Call Malik Obeng. She didn't know yet what she would say, only that Malik had once told her, "Money leaves footprints even when people don't." Outside, thunder rolled far away. Rain began tapping the windows. The city lights wavered in the wet glass, melting into streaks like tears. She lay awake, listening to the storm, to the faint clicking of Kojo's phone as it vibrated once more on the nightstand. The screen lit again. Reflexively, she turned her face toward it, just long enough to see a preview flash before it dimmed. A single line from an unknown number. Did she find the papers? Nia's breath caught. Her eyes darted to Kojo, still asleep or pretending. The glow faded, leaving darkness thick as smoke. She slipped quietly out of bed, her bare feet cold against the marble floor. The hall stretched long and empty. She walked past framed photos, a smiling family frozen in light, lies sealed under glass. In the kitchen, she leaned against the counter and let herself shake. Not cry, just shake, her hands pressed flat on the cool surface until she steadied. The refrigerator hummed softly. Somewhere in the pipes, water murmured, like a distant voice she couldn't quite hear. She thought of the message, of the law firm, of Zuri's too bright smile. Threads tangled together, forming a shape she didn't want to see but couldn't unsee. A trap, a script written without her consent. Lightning flickered outside, painting the room in brief silver. For a moment, her reflection in the window looked like another woman, stronger, colder, someone about to step through her own fear. She whispered into the empty air, "You won't see me coming either." The words hung there, invisible but solid. When she returned to bed, the rain had eased. The clock read 3:21 a.m. Kojo stirred but didn't wake. Nia lay beside him, eyes open, watching dawn approach through the thin curtain. The first light brushed the floorboards, pale and uncertain. In that fragile glow, she felt the distance between them like an open wound, not bleeding but refusing to close. The house that once felt safe now breathed with secrets. She listened to Kojo's breathing, to her own heartbeat answering it, two rhythms no longer in sync. Outside, a bird began to sing, tentative, unaware of the war beginning inside these walls. By the time the sky turned gold, Nia knew something essential had ended. She didn't have proof yet, only fragments, a message, a law firm, a name whispered through wires. But the truth had already stepped into the room, silent and uninvited. She reached out, brushed her fingers across Kojo's hand where it lay relaxed on the sheet. For an instant, warmth. Then she withdrew, slowly, carefully, as if pulling back from a flame. The phone on his nightstand blinked again, lighting his face in soft blue. Nia turned toward the window, her eyes wide open, her breath quiet but unsteady. The city below stirred awake. Cars, voices, life moving forward. While in their bedroom, time froze around that single point of fracture. Something had shifted irreversibly. And though the morning looked calm, Nia felt the tremor inside her chest, the knowledge that love, once cracked, can never be made whole again. She closed her eyes. The echo of 2:03 a.m. still rang in her head, like a bell that wouldn't stop. The code clicked open like a sigh from something that had waited too long to be touched. Nia stood frozen in the dim light of Kojo's office. The number pad on the wall, safe, still glowing soft green. Her fingers trembled slightly as she pulled the door open. It wasn't the difficulty of the moment. It was how easy it had been. The code. Naletti's birthday. The same digits they'd carved into the wood beam of the nursery years ago, laughing through sleepless nights. He hadn't even bothered to change it. Inside the safe, rows of documents lined up like soldiers, corporate binders, passports, a velvet pouch that looked like it held cufflinks, then a folder, thin, manila, clipped shut with an expensive gold pin. No label, just waiting. She opened it. The first page stopped her breath mid-throat. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Kojo Kamara vs. Nia Kamara. Her name printed there, black ink on white paper, clear as finality. A soundless crack bloomed in her chest. Her eyes moved unwillingly to the second line. It listed Kojo as sole petitioner. He had already signed. The language was sterile, brutal in its precision. all property and investments under Kamara Holdings to remain sole possession of the petitioner. Primary residence awarded to petitioner. Full custodial rights of minor child reserved to petitioner. Respondent to be granted supervised visitation pending review. A single red mark on the last page, underlined, circled, assets to be transferred prior to execution. Her hands went numb. The edges of the page curled under the pressure of her grip. Something inside her dropped, not like a fall, but like an anchor sinking. This wasn't a plan. It was an execution. Clean, efficient, already underway. The morning outside shimmered bright and false through the window. The light touched the bookshelves, the glass-topped desk, the wedding photo still sitting in a silver frame beside the globe. Nia and Kojo smiling in Santorini, her white dress fluttering in the breeze, his hand around her waist. She turned to look at that photo now. It didn't belong here. None of it did. A breeze shifted through the hallway beyond the door. Somewhere the hum of the house deepened, the fridge cycling on, the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the entryway. The walls closed in with the weight of betrayal. She placed the file back inside the safe carefully, exactly as it was. Closed the door. Typed the code again, watched it lock. Her own fingers looked foreign to her. The wooden floor beneath her feet felt colder as she stepped out of the office. Back in the kitchen, the coffee sat untouched from earlier, a dark puddle in a white mug, cold now. She took a sip. Bitter. Burnt. Perfect. She looked out the window above the sink. The garden shimmered under morning dew. Naletti's swing swayed slightly in the breeze. The pink ribbon still tied to its rope fluttered like a small flag of some vanished innocence. She walked upstairs slowly, each step measured. The master bedroom still carried Kojo's scent, cologne and linen and something dry, chemical like paper ash. She opened his closet, everything perfectly in place, not a single thing out of order, not even the betrayal. She ran her fingers along the row of suits, black, navy, charcoal, arranged by shade. In the back corner of the closet, his travel bag sat half-zipped, not packed for a trip, not hidden either. She opened it. Inside, a duplicate hard drive, a burner phone still in its plastic, a folded flight itinerary to Mauritius. One seat. One date. Next week. She let the bag fall shut, soft and slow. Downstairs, her phone buzzed. Naletti's school group chat. Field trip permission slips. Snacks for the bus ride. The absurdity stung. She walked out to the garden. Sat on the stone bench under the olive tree they'd planted when Naletti was born. Her chest ached, not from shock anymore, but from clarity. The clarity of knowing it had already happened. She had been written out, edited out, efficiently, quietly, like she was never supposed to know. She traced the seam of her wedding ring with her thumb. The gold felt heavier today. Wrong somehow. Inside the house, a memory flickered. Kojo laughing at the dining table with her father the week before their wedding, saying, "She makes everything grow around her, even things I forgot how to care for." Was that ever true? Or was it always performance? A sound snapped her from the spiral, the creak of the front gate, a neighbor walking their dog. Life continued, indifferent. She stood, went back inside, picked up the wedding photo from Kojo's office, took it to the fireplace. But she didn't burn it, not yet. Instead, she placed it inside the drawer of the hallway console. Face down, let it sit there like a body under a sheet. The air felt different after. Lighter, but not freer, just sharper. Her phone buzzed again, a different tone, a calendar reminder. Kojo's schedule pinged automatically from the shared family calendar. Board dinner, Kojo plus Zuri, 6:30 p.m. Zuri. The name landed like an iron nail driven into something soft. Her breath caught, not in surprise, but in confirmation. She walked back to the study, opened her laptop, typed Zuri Dlamini. The browser filled with images, company bios, sleek LinkedIn posts. Her face was smooth, elegant, deliberate. The same face that had smiled at Nia months ago across the hallway, all warmth on the surface, like skin stretched too tightly over something calculated. A corporate bio listed her as specializing in discrete transitions of high-net portfolios. Another link embedded in a PDF revealed something more interesting, a prior affiliation with ZD Holdings. She clicked. The site was bare. No contact info, no team page, just a shell company with vague promises and offshore strategy speak. Her eyes narrowed. The documents in the safe, the phrasing, the timing, the smile Zuri gave her when they met, that half-second too long. It all aligned. She closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen, poured fresh coffee, sat at the island in the quiet, letting the weight settle. It wasn't only betrayal, it was precision, premeditated, coordinated, and suddenly, not just personal, not just marriage, it was financial erasure. She turned toward the hallway mirror. Her reflection stared back, tired, barefaced, but not broken. She whispered to it, as if to test the shape of the thought, "He's trying to erase me." The mirror didn't answer, but something inside her shifted, a beat, then a second breath. She walked back upstairs, opened her jewelry drawer, pulled out an old phone. Malik's contact was still saved. Kojo's college friend, the one who always looked too closely when they were all in the same room, who once told her at a fundraiser, "You deserve someone who doesn't treat your loyalty like a given." She texted, "Need to talk, not about Kojo, about numbers." The reply came before she expected. "I'm free after 4, tell me where." She typed back, "The cafe by the river, the one with the blue chairs." No emojis, no small talk, just a place to begin. And as she set the phone down, her eyes caught the family portrait still hanging in the hallway. She didn't take it down. Not yet. But she noticed, for the first time, how even in that picture, Kojo's hand wasn't quite touching her, just hovered, almost imperceptibly, above her shoulder. She'd always thought it was the angle. Now she wasn't sure it wasn't the truth. And somewhere beneath the hurt, beneath the rising fury and ice, a thought began to bloom, quiet, determined, almost tender. He didn't know her as well as he thought. And that was his first mistake. The spoon in his cup barely moved, but Malik's eyes didn't leave her face. Not once. They sat by the river under the waning light of late afternoon. The espresso between them had gone cold, but the air still smelled of roast and wind. The cafe was quiet, just the scrape of chairs, the murmur of 2 college students laughing in the corner, and the distant clinking of silverware from the kitchen window. Everything around them moved in slow rhythm, but the silence between them was loaded, ticking. Nia hadn't touched her drink. She didn't need caffeine. She needed confirmation. When she finished speaking, when the last word left her lips, Zuri, folder, law firm, Malik didn't speak right away. He exhaled long and low, rubbed his chin, and stared at the river beyond the glass. His jaw tightened as if he'd swallowed something bitter. "I always knew he had ambition," he said finally, his voice quiet but sharp. "But I didn't think he'd sell off his soul for it." She wanted to say she didn't either, but the words caught. Grief was a strange weight, not loud like anger, not hot like panic, but cold. Like standing in a room full of people with no sound, no color, just knowing something had been stolen and would never be returned. Malik pulled his tablet from his leather bag, fingers tapping quickly. "I've been watching ZD Holdings for a while. Ghost company. No full disclosures, just enough activity to stay off alerts. But now?" His brow furrowed. "They're busy, really busy. Look." He turned the screen to her. A string of transactions appeared, small amounts at first, peppered across 6 weeks. Transfer, transfer, transfer. At first glance, insignificant. But the frequency, the pattern, they told a different story. "They're using staggered deposits to avoid detection thresholds," Malik said, "but it's coming from your joint accounts, consistently." Her lips parted, but nothing came out. "This isn't side investing," he added. "It's relocation, and here..." He slid the screen again. A foreign bank code, a destination account in the Cayman Islands. The name? Zuri Dlamini. The cold that had followed her since the safe deepened. Malik looked up, watching her closely. "I'm guessing Kojo never mentioned any of this." She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned back, feeling the heat drain from her hands, replaced by a strange, tight steadiness. It was one thing to suspect, another to see it mapped out in columns and code, cold and deliberate. She closed her eyes for a moment. The river outside glittered in soft amber light, rippling like breath. She opened them again and said, carefully, "Can we set an alert for anything that looks like this again?" Malik nodded. "Already done. You'll get real-time pings for suspicious activity. You want full visibility or only the red flags?" "Full." "Okay." She hesitated. "Kojo can't know. I'll ghost the access through a proxy. He'll never see it." The weight of gratitude pressed against her chest, not for the information, but for being believed. For not having to explain that beneath the betrayal was something uglier, something calculated. Malik leaned forward, fingers laced. "I need to ask you something, and I'm only asking because I know the stakes." She met his eyes. "Are you ready for what happens if you push back? I mean all the way." The question landed with a low internal thud. Was she? She pictured Naletti's face, the drawing taped on the fridge, the swing with the pink ribbon. Yes. He nodded, said nothing more. They finished in silence. She gathered her things. He paid the check before she could protest. They stepped outside. The sky had deepened to violet. Street lamps blinked to life one by one. The air smelled of damp leaves and river salt. Cars passed in soft blurs behind them. The cafe's sign flickered above the awning. Then she saw them. Across the narrow parking lot, near the black Range Rover she recognized too well, stood Kojo, tall, polished, laughing. And beside him, Zuri, her hair slicked back in a perfect twist, a beige coat cinched tightly at the waist, nails crimson, smile precise. Kojo's hand rested on her shoulder. Not in passing, not businesslike. It was a gesture Nia knew too well. The thumb against the collarbone, the curve of his fingers behind the neck. The intimacy of a man who didn't need to pretend anymore. Her breath stopped. Zuri saw her. Their eyes locked. And Zuri smiled. Not warm, not embarrassed, but cool. Calm. The smile of someone ahead in a game. Kojo hadn't seen her yet. He leaned in, said something. Zuri laughed. Then, slowly, she turned her head and whispered in his ear. Kojo froze, then turned. Nia stood still. He blinked, straightened, and adjusted his tie. Too fast. His expression shifted in a flash from surprise to neutral to charm, like flipping a switch. He nodded once, civil, then opened the passenger door for Zuri without a word. Zuri slid in like a queen, one glance back, that same smile. The door shut. The car reversed slowly, pulled out, drove away. The wind picked up. Malik hadn't said a word. He stood beside Nia, jaw tight, watching them disappear. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, from clarity. He wasn't hiding anymore. He thought she was done, outplayed, overwhelmed. But he hadn't seen her yet. She exhaled long and sharp. Malik turned. "You okay?" She nodded once. "No." He waited. She looked at him, eyes clearer than they had been in days. "But I will be." They walked back toward the main road. The cafe lights behind them blurred into soft gold. Across the river, music floated from a boat docked near the bank. Faint jazz, slow, moody. She stopped for a moment and looked back at the water. Kojo's voice echoed in memory. "This city made me. I owe it everything." But what he owed, what he took, what he erased, was hers too. And now it was time to take it back. At home, after Naledi had gone to bed, Nia opened her laptop. The alert system Malik set up blinked online, clean, fast, hidden under an innocuous folder labeled Recipes. She watched the live monitor. Kojo's account balance refreshed every 10 seconds. No movement yet. But she would see it when it happened. She opened a new file, created a timeline, names, dates, transaction codes, the folder in the safe, the law firm, Zuri, Blackwell. Every lie, now a dot to connect. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far. She closed the lid, rested her hand on it for a moment. Not in fear, in readiness. Then she picked up her phone and typed one word to Malik. Begin. In the quiet, the wind brushed against the windows like breath. And in the dark of her room, under the low hum of electricity, Nia let the silence settle. Not the silence of surrender. The silence before a strike. The rain didn't fall. It slammed. Hard, sideways, like it had purpose. Each drop cracked against the windshield as Nia parked across the street from Avalon Hotel, her fingers clenched around the steering wheel. The wipers strained against the downpour, clearing only slivers of distorted light. Beyond the blur, the grand stone arch of the hotel stood like a memory she didn't want to remember. Once the scene of their 10-year vow renewal, now a meeting ground for betrayal. She turned off the engine. The car ticked as it cooled. She sat motionless, watching the revolving glass doors spin open, then close. Guests passed through with umbrellas and champagne-colored luggage. And then she saw him. Kojo stepped out of a town car, black suit damp at the shoulders. He didn't rush. He never rushed. His presence, even under this rain, remained calculated, calm, practiced, every movement shaped like a performance. Behind him, Zuri emerged, dry under the hotel's umbrella service, her heels clicking smartly as she joined him under the canopy. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. His hand on her back said everything. Nia breathed in once, deep, then stepped into the storm. Water hit her like glass. It soaked through her coat in seconds, streamed down her cheeks like tears she refused to let fall. She moved fast, keeping her distance, blending behind parked cars and clipped hedges. The old entrance on the east wing was still unmonitored, same as the night they'd snuck in during their honeymoon and danced barefoot in the lobby. She entered. The hallway greeted her with the scent of old wood and hotel soap. The lights flickered overhead, not broken, just dimmed for mood. Luxury had a way of cloaking everything in silence. She kept moving, past the elevators, past the bar where a saxophone whispered low into the gloom, past the wall that once held their framed anniversary photo, now replaced by an abstract print in hues of blue and betrayal. She saw them first through the reflection in the polished floor, 3 shadows in a room just beyond the lounge. A side conference suite, door cracked open, Kojo, Zuri, and a third man. Middle-aged, gray suit, glasses, sharp eyes, quiet posture. Nia moved to the edge of the hallway, back against the wall, heart pounding louder than the storm outside. She pulled her phone from her coat pocket, tapped once on the app Malik had installed. The screen turned black, recording activated. She stepped closer, just enough. Voices filtered through. "We move this week," the man was saying. "If we delay, the balance could trigger scrutiny. Her access to the accounts has to be revoked before she gets wise." Zuri's voice followed, velvet over steel. "I've already initiated the reassignments. As long as the Cayman link holds, she won't see $1. Kojo spoke then. Quiet. Cold. "She's emotional. That's her weakness. Always has been." Nia's grip on the phone tightened. The man, Blackwell, she realized, cleared his throat. "And the child?" A pause. Kojo answered, "We'll cross that bridge when we get there." The silence after those words was worse than the words themselves. She leaned against the wall. Her legs shook, not from fear, not even from rage, but from the stillness of it, the clarity. Hearing it aloud was different. It was final. She backed away slowly, her boots squeaking against the marble. Her fingers tapped again. The recording ended, saved, encrypted, forwarded to Malik. Thunder cracked. She turned, walking faster now, heart a drumbeat behind her ribs. She reached the side door, but something made her stop. Instinct, or something older. She turned. Across the hallway, just past the reception area, under the dim light of the chandelier, she saw them again. Kojo and Zuri exiting the room. He reached for her. Zuri turned to face him. Their lips met in a kiss that was neither rushed nor hidden. There, in public, under the same crystal ceiling where Nia had once said forever. The air left her lungs. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She simply watched. Watched Kojo lean in as if the world hadn't burned behind him. Watched Zuri's eyes flutter closed like a woman who believed she had already won. The door of the elevator opened. They stepped in. Disappeared. The silence after was cavernous. Rain battered the windows. She stood beneath the hallway's golden light, drenched, trembling, and strangely calm. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. One new message.
"File received. You got them."
She replied with 2 words. "It begins." But even as she typed, her hands trembled. She walked slowly toward the exit, boots leaving wet prints across the marble. Outside, the rain had turned colder, each drop sharper. But she didn't run for cover. She stepped into it fully, letting it soak her through. The lights of the city blurred into streaks through the water in her lashes. She didn't wipe them away. She walked past her car, down the sidewalk, head lifted, hair plastered to her face. Behind her, Avalon glowed like a theater after curtain call. Everything in her hurt. But it was a clean hurt, sharp, surgical. Not grief, not anymore. Clarity. She stopped at the corner under a flickering street lamp, whispered out loud to no one. You chose war. Then paused. Took one breath. I choose truth. She didn't say it for him. She said it for herself. The wind shifted. The city exhaled. And Nia Monroe turned and disappeared into the rain. Not broken, not finished, but just beginning. The office door closed with a soft click, but the quiet that followed was sharp. Nia sat across from Adana Cole, her back straight, palms pressed flat on her lap to hide the tremble in her fingers. Rainwater still clung to the edges of her coat. Her boots left faint prints on the hardwood floor. She hadn't spoken since she walked in. Adana didn't rush. She flipped the prenuptial agreement page by page, long manicured nails ticking against the thick paper. Her eyes moved with the precision of someone who'd studied 1,000 lies written in legal ink and learned to recognize betrayal by sentence structure. She stopped, tilted her head, looked up. Tell me, she said, her voice smooth as burnished wood, how long has he been underestimating you? Nia didn't smile. She only blinked once. Adana leaned forward. Her office smelled faintly of leather, citrus oil, and something crisp, like justice freshly brewed. This clause, she tapped the margin, was his undoing. She slid the paper across the desk. Nia read the underlined line again. Any intentional concealment of marital assets, including via offshore holdings, shall render all protective provisions void and subject to full reallocation to the injured party, per arbitration or court ruling. Nia's breath caught, not from surprise but from recognition. Kojo had signed this. His signature curved at the bottom of the page, bold, certain, from a time when he believed he would always hold the upper hand. Adana sat back, crossed one leg over the other, her black heels tapped once, soft but final. He tried to outmaneuver the system, but he forgot something fundamental. Her gaze was unflinching. You are the system now. Nia swallowed hard. The papers blurred slightly, not from tears, but from the velocity of change. How fast a weapon could turn in your own hands if you learned where the blade lived. She reached into her bag, pulled out the USB, placed it between them like an offering. Recordings, she said quietly. And this, she added, placing her phone beside it. Live transaction tracking Malik helped set up. We have names, dates, routing numbers, offshore destination, beneficiary name, Zuri Dlamini. Adana's expression didn't change. She simply nodded once and reached for both. There's more, Nia added, voice low, steadying. Photos, from Avalon, witnesses if needed. I have every move documented since the first dollar shifted. Adana's eyes sparkled, but not with sentiment. It was something older, hungrier. You've done your homework. No, Nia said. I did his. The room went still. Outside, wind pressed against the glass. Trees bent in silence. Somewhere below, a car alarm wailed and then cut off abruptly. Adana picked up the USB, turned it between her fingers. We'll start with a formal preservation order. Emergency protective filing, asset freeze petition. Once filed, he'll receive notice, but the accounts will already be locked. She paused. Her voice softened just slightly. And I'll file it in a judge's chambers, I trust. Nia looked up. You don't even know me. I don't have to, Adana said. I know this look. I've seen it before. The moment when a woman stops asking for fairness and starts claiming consequence. Nia didn't reply. The silence was its own answer. Adana's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then back up. We start now. For the next hour, they moved with the speed of a storm coming in. Malik joined by video call, eyes tight, voice clipped. Legal language ricocheted across the room. Injunctions, ex parte motions, digital trails, asset clauses. Every word was another nail in the box Kojo had built for someone else. By the time Nia stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky remained overcast, gray like bruised linen. The streets shimmered, puddles reflecting street lamps like fractured mirrors. She walked to her car without speaking. As she reached for the door handle, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Stop, you're being watched. This ends now. She froze. The screen glowed in her palm, the letters cold, exact. No punctuation, no signature. Just warning, or a threat. She turned slowly, scanned the street. Nothing. No car idling, no figure watching from behind tinted glass, just a city moving on with its business, as if her life hadn't just been marked. Her breath came shallow. She leaned against the car, exhaled once, long and low. She opened the phone camera, snapped a screenshot, forwarded it to Malik and Adana in silence. Adana's response came fast. "Ignore it. That means we're hitting something real." Malik replied right after. "They're scared. That's good. Fear is noisy. We track noise." But the silence that followed, on the street, in the air, in her own chest, was not so easily dismissed. She sat in the car for a long time, hands gripping the steering wheel, breath slow. Rain began again, softer this time. It tapped the roof like fingers drumming, the kind of rain that seeped in under doors, crept through cracks, the kind you only noticed once you were already soaked. She drove home with headlights off until she reached her block. The house loomed in the distance, lights still on in Naledi's room. Her daughter's shadow danced behind drawn curtains, holding a stuffed giraffe, probably lost in another make-believe world. Nia parked, sat still. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo of her from earlier that day, crossing the street, head down, coat soaked, taken from a high angle. No caption, just the image. She dropped the phone on the passenger seat. Her mouth was dry, her throat tight. She got out of the car, eyes scanning windows, rooftops, passing vehicles. The fear wasn't sharp, it was slow, coiling, like a snake around the ribs. Inside, the warmth of the house felt artificial, too bright, too safe. Naledi ran to her, arms wrapping around her waist, eyes wide with something pure. "Mommy, you smell like rain." Nia kissed her forehead. "I'm just passing through a storm, baby." That night, long after Naledi slept, Nia sat by the window. She didn't turn the lights on. She watched the street. She watched nothing. And everything. The photo remained on her phone, still there, still loaded. She didn't delete it. She stared at it until the lines blurred. Her own body, captured. A woman in motion, a target. Or a warning. She whispered into the dark. "I'm not scared of being seen." Then added, quieter, "But you should be." Behind her, on the kitchen counter, the printed copy of the prenup sat beside a half-drunk glass of red wine. One line circled in Adana's red pen. Any intentional concealment. She traced it with her finger. The ink didn't smudge. Outside, wind howled against the glass. Somewhere far off, sirens wailed. But inside that room, Nia's silence was a blade, and she was learning how to sharpen it. The cursor blinked once, then again, then disappeared, swallowed by the sudden red flash on the screen. "Transaction denied." Kojo's hand hovered over the mouse. Breath caught halfway up his chest. The office was still. The only sound was the low hum of the floor lamp and the soft click of rain tapping the window behind him. He blinked, refreshed the screen. Same result. Error 406. Transfer restricted. Funds held under TRO directive. The number at the top glared at him in sterile white font. 400,000 wali. Untouchable, sealed, gone. He pushed his chair back, the wheels screeching too loud across the marble floor. The air had thickened without warning. His collar itched. He stood, opened the glass door to his private bar, poured 2 fingers of scotch, then changed his mind and threw the glass against the wall. It shattered, amber liquid sliding down like slow blood. In the stillness that followed, the realization settled. Someone had filed a temporary restraining order. And not just someone. Her. He grabbed his phone, dialed fast, straight to voicemail. Zuri. He tried again. No ring, no answer. He tried her backup number. Disconnected. The screen glowed white in his hand, a ghostly rectangle of failure. He turned, walked to the window, pulled the curtain back with the force of a man used to control. Outside, the city blinked like nothing had changed. But inside this room, the empire was no longer his. Across town, in a much smaller room lit by cheap halogen and the steady flicker of a coffee machine, Nia sat between Malik and Adana, watching a different screen. The line at the top of the digital ledger now read, "Status, protected under judicial order, effective immediately." Her hands were still, her body calm, but her eyes, they glinted. Adana tapped her nails against the desk, slow and rhythmic. "Kojo knows by now. He'll call you." "I know," Nia said softly. "And when he does," Malik added, "you say nothing. Let silence do the talking." But Nia shook her head. "No, I want him to feel it. I want to answer." They both turned. She stared at the screen for a long time, then whispered, "He taught me to move like him, but he forgot I watched him do it." The moment hung there, charged and quiet. Then her phone rang. The name blinked once.
Kojo.
She answered on speaker. He didn't waste time. "What did you do?" Nia's voice came steady, cold. "I took my place back. This is a mistake." His tone coiled, threatening and desperate all at once. "You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking exactly as clearly as the judge who signed it." Kojo went silent. Then, "This will blow up everything, for both of us." "No," she said, "only for you. You don't want to start a war you can't finish, Nia." She smiled. No sound, just the shape of it in the air. "Kojo," she said quietly, "you've been at war with me for months. You just didn't know I'd fight back." She hung up. The room remained silent. The click echoed too long. Adana stood, picked up the printout of the court filing, tapped the top. "This will hold for now. We've bought time. But if Zuri's gone underground, she might have tried to clone the accounts or move backups through secondary LLCs. We need to act fast." "She won't get far," Malik said. "I'm tracking every shadow move. They think they know the shell game, but I know where the table bends." Nia exhaled. The pressure in her chest loosened, just slightly. "Let them run," she said. "I'm not chasing, I'm watching." She turned her gaze to the window, where the rain had turned to mist. And somewhere beneath the sound of keyboards and legal jargon, a strange calm began to grow. It wasn't victory yet, but it was something closer. A shift, a tilt. The edge of a tide turning. Later that evening, Kojo stood alone in his office, tie loosened, shirt damp at the collar. The room felt unfamiliar, as if the furniture had moved when he wasn't looking. He opened his second laptop, the one not registered to his name, the one Zuri set up months ago when she first whispered the word insulation. He logged into the proxy account. Nothing. No funds. Just a single text message waiting in the inbox. "You were sloppy. She wasn't." No sender ID, no signature. His hands curled into fists. He picked up the framed photo on his desk, the one of Naledi, laughing at a birthday party. He stared at her smile, the pink frosting on her cheek, the innocence of it. He put the photo down gently, then pulled open the drawer beneath it. Inside, two things sat side by side. His passport and a plane ticket to Zurich. One way! Booked 3 weeks ago, just in case. But something about the weight of it now felt wrong, like the exit had closed before he reached it. The desk phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again and again. On the fourth ring, he answered. It was the bank. The voice was tight, professional. "Mr. Kamara, this is a courtesy call regarding your corporate accounts. We're seeing a flagged transaction attempt from an IP in São Paulo. It triggered an auto lock based on the new legal hold filed this morning. Should we continue blocking or escalate?" He didn't speak. "Sir?" Kojo's lips moved. The words took a second too long. "Block everything."
Yes, sir.
The line went dead. He set the receiver down. Behind him, the city stretched out under a darkening sky. And somewhere in that city, a woman he thought he could erase had just turned the map upside down. That night, as Nia stood over the stove reheating soup for Naledi, her phone buzzed again. She wiped her hands, looked down. A photo appeared, but this time it wasn't threatening. It was Zuri, captured blurry at an airport terminal. Hair pulled back. No luggage, just a backpack and a folded jacket. The timestamp read, 6:32 a.m., departed, no return flight logged. Malik's message followed, "She's running." Nia stared at the photo, not with triumph, but with something more complicated. Not fear, not even satisfaction. Something closer to mourning. Mourning for the version of herself who once believed none of this was possible. She hit save, then powered off her phone. Naledi called from the table, spoon tapping. "Mommy, can we eat now?" Nia smiled. "Yes, baby, we can eat now." And in that moment, that small, bright, ordinary moment, a crack of peace opened. It didn't last, but it didn't need to, because now she knew what power felt like. And it was not rage, it was clarity. The fountain pen rolled off the table and hit the hardwood with a hollow clink. Kojo didn't move. He sat there, hunched forward, both hands gripping the edge of the dining room table, eyes locked on the folder in front of him. A thick black binder, no dust, no mercy. Inside, printouts, photos, audio transcripts, bank statements, email headers, court filings. All his secrets, neat, ordered, undeniable. Nia sat across from him, spine straight, voice steady. The first light of dawn filtered through the sheer curtains behind her, painting her in the color of quiet reckoning. She didn't raise her voice, didn't flinch. She let the silence stretch long between them until the weight of it became heavier than any accusation. Kojo's jaw worked, clenched once. He tried to speak, failed. Then finally, "You went too far." Nia didn't blink. "No," she said. "I went exactly far enough." Her hand moved slightly. Not aggressive, just controlled. Sliding another piece of paper across the table, it stopped just inches from his elbow. A trust deed, legal, irrevocable. Every asset in Kojo's name transferred into Naledi's trust under the bank's control and permanently outside his. Nia leaned back, exhaling slow. "Sign it, or everything in that folder goes to the board, the press, and the prosecutor's office. In that order." Kojo laughed, but it was dry, cracked, wounded. "You really think this protects you?"
"No," she said. "It protects her."
Kojo's eyes narrowed. "She's 6, he snapped. "She doesn't need protection from me." Nia didn't answer. She just reached forward and flipped one page in the folder. A still frame from the Avalon security footage. Kojo, Zuri, the kiss. His breath hitched. "Don't worry," she murmured. "She won't ever see that. She'll never know the version of you that betrayed your own bloodline for a cleaner bank statement." Kojo's fingers twitched, but he didn't reach for the pen. Instead, he stood, walked to the window. Rain clung to the glass in beads. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the horizon had started to warm, soft gold bleeding into steel blue. He looked older than he had days ago. Something inside him had cracked. He turned finally and stared at her. "You loved me once." "Yes," Nia said. Her voice didn't shake. Kojo's eyes glistened, but not from remorse, from a pride bruised beyond repair. "You'll regret this." Nia stood now, calm and measured. She walked to the corner of the table, picked up the fallen pen, set it next to the trust documents. Then she looked at him. Really looked. And what she saw was not the man she married, not the man who danced with her in socks in the kitchen, not the man who whispered promises into her ear while their daughter slept upstairs. What stood before her now was a man who gambled and lost and refused to admit he ever played. She spoke, low and final. "I will never regret saving our daughter from becoming the kind of person who chooses power over truth." Kojo sat back down. His hand hovered above the page. Then, slow, not with dignity, but with surrender, he signed. Nia didn't exhale. "Not yet." He looked up. "That's it then?" "No." She slid one last envelope across the table. "This is your copy." Kojo didn't touch it. She reached for her bag, picked it up, buttoned her coat. Her voice was almost gentle now. "You can keep your name, your charm, your stories." She stepped toward the door. "But I'll keep the truth." He didn't answer, didn't move. The house had fallen into a stillness neither of them knew how to break. Her hand touched the doorknob, then paused. "I wanted it to be you," she said, almost to herself. "I really did." Then she walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft final sound. She stepped onto the front porch. The early morning air was crisp, edged with the scent of wet leaves and pavement still holding last night's chill. The street was empty. The world had not yet begun to stir. A city in limbo, just like her. She walked to her car, opened the door, then stopped. Looked down at her hands. They were shaking, not from fear, not from victory, but from the weight of letting go. Inside the house, Kojo remained seated at the table, staring at the signature he'd just made. It looked foreign now, like someone else had written it. He reached for the pen again, but it was no longer ink he needed. It was time, and time was something he had just lost. He stood, walked slowly through the quiet house. His reflection passed in the mirror near the stairs, but he didn't look at it. He stopped at Naledi's bedroom door, didn't open it, just rested his hand on the wood, then turned away. Downstairs, the envelope still sat untouched. Nia drove across the city without music. Her phone buzzed twice, but she didn't check it. The roads were damp, the sky above her lightened by the minute. By the time she parked outside her lawyer's office, the sun had broken through. Thin at first, then stronger. She stepped out of the car and turned her face up to it. Let it hit her skin. She hadn't cried. Not yet. But now, standing there in the quiet between what was and what could be, the tears came, one then another. No sobs, just release. Inside her coat pocket, her fingers brushed against something small. A folded piece of paper Naledi had slipped into her hand that morning. A drawing. Stick figures holding hands. A house. A sun. The word, us. Nia folded it back gently, tucked it away, then wiped her face and walked inside. She didn't look back, because the hardest part wasn't making him sign. It was realizing the war had never been between her and Kojo. It had always been between the life she was told to preserve and the one she finally chose to protect. And this morning, long before the city even opened its eyes, she chose. The envelope was unmarked. No return address, no logo, just white paper, slightly bent at the edges, slipped beneath the front door while the city still slept. Nia found it at 6:03 a.m., barefoot in a silk robe, holding a steaming mug of ginger tea. She paused, crouched, and lifted the envelope with 2 fingers as if it might bite. Her name was typed on the front, nothing else. She didn't open it. Not yet. The house was quiet. Naledi still asleep upstairs, the wind tickling the windows, the hum of the refrigerator the only living sound. She set the envelope on the kitchen counter next to the foundation's press packet, its bold gold lettering shining faintly under the recessed light. The Naledi Foundation. She stared at those words for a long second, then exhaled, deeply, like she was finally letting go of air she'd been holding in since spring. Outside, the sun cracked over the skyline. The same city that once threatened to erase her now bathed her in its first soft light. The doorbell rang. A delivery man in navy blue handed her a bouquet, wild lilies, sharp red tulips, eucalyptus, no card, only a strip of paper folded inside the stems. She pulled it loose, read the words once. She's officially bankrupt. Every account frozen. Personal and corporate. M. Nia set the note down. Her fingers didn't tremble. She walked slowly to the mirror by the door, the one with the carved mahogany frame, and looked at herself. Her reflection didn't flinch. She was wearing white. Not as a statement, not as a costume, just simple, clean, unburdened. She reached back for the envelope, opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, a photocopy, a court document. Kojo Kamara, suspended pending investigation. Charges listed below: financial misconduct, fraudulent transfers, corporate abuse of marital assets. She folded the paper once, then again, slid it into the drawer beside the front door. She didn't need to read it twice. Today was not for him. Today was for something else entirely. By 8 a.m., the event space shimmered. Cream-colored drapes lined the walls. Light streamed through massive windows, casting long shadows across a floor of polished oak. In the center of the room, a single podium. No branding, no glitter, just presence. Rows of chairs filled quickly. Women in quiet colors, men in dark suits, lawyers, survivors, press with notepads tucked under arms, a few board members she'd once stood behind, all waiting. But Nia didn't speak immediately. She waited behind the curtain, fingers lightly tracing Naledi's drawing, now laminated and tucked in her purse. The one with the stick figures, the house, the sun. The word us. Her phone buzzed once in her bag. She didn't check it. Adana approached from the side, earpiece still blinking, clipboard in hand. "You ready?" she asked softly. Nia nodded. Adana smiled. Not the kind of smile that said congratulations, but the kind that said, "You earned every inch of this floor." "Then go take your name back," she said. Nia stepped into the light. The crowd rose. Applause echoed, not thunderous, not performative. Just real. Long, warm, like hands on her back. She stood behind the podium, took one breath, and spoke. "I named this foundation after my daughter," she began, voice low, steady, carrying across the room like smoke. "Because when you've been broken open, the only thing that keeps you from becoming your worst version is the part of you that still remembers love." No sound moved. No phone rang. No chair squeaked. Only her voice. And for years, I thought love meant endurance, silence, choosing peace even when it tasted like ash. But I've learned something else. She paused, looked at the room, looked at the women in the second row. One of them had a scar just visible beneath her sleeve. Another clutched a notebook like armor. Love is truth, she continued, and truth has a sound. Sometimes it sounds like footsteps walking away, sometimes like a gavel, sometimes like the lock clicking on your own front door as you keep yourself safe for the first time. She let the silence breathe. Today, we start a fund to help women who've been erased financially, from bank accounts, from deeds, from decisions. We build this for the ones told to be grateful while being quietly erased. A ripple of emotion moved across the room like light over water. Nia stepped back. Applause again, this time louder, fuller, not just support, recognition. Behind the curtain, Malik stood next to a rolling monitor, a silent nod, a moment of pride without performance. In the hallway, someone handed her a glass of water. She didn't drink, just held it, grounded. She stepped outside onto the back balcony of the venue and breathed in the morning air, brighter now, less uncertain. The breeze moved her hair slightly. Then, a voice behind her, soft, tentative. "Mom?" She turned. Naledi stood there, white sneakers, pink headband, holding her little stuffed giraffe like she had when she was 3. Nia crouched. "Yeah, baby?" Naledi hesitated, then looked up, her eyes searching. "Does Daddy still love you?" The question didn't sting. It didn't even surprise. It landed with a soft thud, like a door closing gently, not slamming. Nia reached out, brushed a curl behind her daughter's ear. "Love doesn't disappear," she said quietly. "It just moves, finds somewhere better to grow." Naledi blinked. "Like a plant?" Nia smiled, really smiled. "Exactly like that." The little girl looked down, then up again. "Are you okay now?" Nia stood slowly, kissed the top of her daughter's head, and looked past the rooftops into the light. "I think I'm finally starting to be." They stood there for a long time. No words, just skin and wind and something whole. Later, as the event wrapped, Nia returned to the podium to collect her things. She picked up a pen. Her fingers brushed over the wood. A journalist approached. Young, eyes kind. "Miss Kamara," she asked, "if you could describe today in one word, what would it be?" Nia thought for a moment.
Looked out the window.
Saw the city no longer as a battlefield, but as a garden with space for something new. Then answered, "Home." The journalist smiled. Nia didn't, but something inside her eased. Not because the war was over, but because the war had changed her. And what was left, finally, was hers. Sometimes the sharpest betrayals don't come with raised voices or shattered glass. They arrive quietly, in silences that stretch too long, in smiles that don't reach the eyes, in signatures written before goodbyes are spoken. But even in the face of erasure, something enduring survives. Not the illusions, not the polished facades, but the truth. The truth that dignity does not live in wealth or appearances. It lives in the choice to stand, even when the ground beneath you gives way. It lives in the decision to protect what matters, not through revenge, but through clarity. It lives in the strength to reclaim your name, your voice, your place in the world, without asking permission. This wasn't a story about endings, it was a story about awakenings, about how freedom doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes in the quiet, at dawn, after a signature, after a walk away, after choosing not to disappear. There are wounds that never fully close, but there is power in the scar. Because the scar says, you were here, you endured, you healed. And maybe that's what this journey reminds us, that survival is not the same as silence, that grace is not weakness, and that even when the world tries to write you out, you always have the right and the power to write yourself back in. So if you've ever been told you were too much or not enough, if you've ever loved someone who didn't know how to love you back, if you've ever had to start again from nothing but your own breath, know this. You are not broken, you are becoming, and becoming is louder than anything that ever tried to silence you. Thank you for walking through this story with an open heart. If it moved you, if it stirred something you've carried quietly, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. We read them, we carry them, and we grow together. Don't forget to follow the channel and subscribe so you never miss what's coming next, because the stories don't stop here. They're just beginning.